you live in an apartment, this story is gonna mess with your head. Because no matter how high your floor is, no matter how safe you think a locked window makes you, there's something most people don't realize. Windows don't just keep things out. Sometimes they trap things inside. And I didn't learn that until the night something stood on the other side of my glass, smiling at me on the 14th floor, where no one should possibly be. My name is Jason. I was 22 when this happened. In 2021, I moved to Chicago for my first real job. No friends, no family, just a one-bedroom apartment in a rundown high-rise across from an old office building. The elevator smelled weird, the paint peeled, and the hallway lights flickered like they were scared to stay on. But the rent was cheap. My place had a massive floor-to-ceiling living room window that overlooked the skyline. At night, it made me feel less alone. During my first week, nothing strange happened. On my 8th night, everything changed. It was around 11 p.m. I was scrolling my phone when something caught my eye, a silhouette across the street, standing inside the abandoned office building directly facing mine. Still, motionless, facing my apartment. I assumed it was a worker at first, until I noticed every floor in that building was pitch black. No lights, no movement, no electricity, except that window. And that figure, tall, thin, too still, facing me like it knew exactly where I was. I tried to laugh it off, convincing myself it was a reflection or mannequin. But the unease didn't go away. Something about it felt wrong, like it wasn't just watching, it was waiting. The next night, I looked again. I shouldn't have. The figure was there again, but closer to the window now. Far closer. I could make out long, dangling arms, too long to be natural. Then, slowly, his head tilted, deliberate, acknowledging me. Even from across the street, I could feel the smile forming. I shut the curtains and pretended none of it happened, but I barely slept. The next morning, I asked the building's security guard, an older man named Harper, what was going on in that office building. His face tightened. That building's been empty for 4 years, he said. No one goes in. No one lasts a night in there. I asked him what he meant. He didn't answer. He just muttered, if that window ever lights up again, close your curtains. That night I turned off all my lights and watched the building. Hours passed. Nothing. Midnight. Nothing. 12:30 a.m. A single light flickered on. The silhouette appeared again closer than ever, almost pressed against the glass. Its limbs looked stretched, its posture not quite human. Then its arm lifted. It waved, not friendly, more like a signal.
I see ya.
The light went out, but I knew it was still there, hidden in the dark, watching. That night I dreamt, I did. I stood in front of my window, but outside was nothing but darkness. No city, no lights, just void. A face pressed against the glass, gray skin stretched too tight, hollow pits for eyes, a mouth torn open too wide. It whispered,
Closer?
I jolted awake, drenched in sweat. My curtains were open. I know I closed them. The next night at 1:14 a.m. I peeked through the curtain. The office window was dark, but I could still see him, because he wasn't inside the room anymore. He was right against the glass, his face flattened, teeth bared, eyes locked on mine. His hand slid across the inside of the window, leaving deep scratches. Scratches on a window with no one inside. The scraping sound followed me even after I closed the curtains. The next morning, I walked to the abandoned building. The doors were welded shut. Steel plates covered every entrance. There was no way in, no way out. I circled the entire structure. Every window sealed, every floor inaccessible. Then my stomach dropped. The window where the figure appeared, there was no floor behind it anymore. That level of the building had been gutted in demolition, meaning there was nothing to stand on. The man wasn't standing on a floor. He was suspended in empty air. I called my building manager, panicked. Told him something was watching me. He sighed. He'd heard this before. "I'll send a demolition inspector," he said. "Tonight? They don't go at night." He hung up. They all knew something. I just didn't know what. Around 3:07 a.m., I woke up to tapping. Tap, tap, tap. From the living room window, the curtains were pushed inward, like something was pressing against them. I pulled them aside just a tiny bit and saw a hand pressed flat against the glass. Gray skin, cracked nails, long fingers, and the hand began to rise, slowly, upward, which meant whoever it belonged to was climbing the building, climbing 14 floors, without stairs, without support, without anything to hold, just scaling the side of the building directly toward me. The tapping grew sharper. Then a face appeared, pressed against my window, grinning, teeth scraping the glass, eyes black and dead. He mouthed, "Inside." I grabbed a kitchen knife, even though I knew it was useless. When I turned back to the window, the glass was bending inward, not cracking, bending, as if pressure was building between the panes themselves. Like he wasn't pushing from outside, but from inside the glass, like he was phasing through it. Then the tapping stopped. A whisper sounded behind me.
"Closer?"
When I spun around, nothing. But when I turned back, the window was empty. No figure, no face, just darkness. Until I saw it, 5 long scratch marks on the inside of my window, inside my apartment. I ran, didn't pack, didn't look back. As I opened the door to the hallway, I heard something move in my living room, bones cracking, joints stretching, something unfolding itself. I sprinted down 14 flights of stairs, barely breathing. Outside, I looked up at my window. Something tall and still stood behind the glass, watching. I moved states, changed everything, tried to forget. Last week, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was a single photograph, taken from outside a window. My old apartment window, 14th floor. But the reflection in the glass wasn't the photographer. It was a tall gray figure, smiling. From the wrong side of the window, inside, one word was written under the photo.
"Closer?"
I want to warn you before I start. If you've ever stood near a grave, if you've ever walked past an old cemetery, or if you've ever felt like the ground beneath you wasn't completely still, this story is going to ruin that for you. Because what I heard that night wasn't the wind. It was breathing, coming from underground. And I'm not the only person who heard it. My name is Daniel. I'm 27 now, but this happened 2 years ago. Back then, I worked as a freelance photographer, mostly boring assignments, real estate, small town events. I lived in a rural part of Virginia where nothing exciting ever happened. The kind of place where the loudest sound at night is crickets and faraway highway noise. But in late October of 2023, I got a message from a local history group asking if I'd take pictures of an abandoned 19th century cemetery deep in the woods near the Appalachian foothills. They wanted documentation for preservation. The money was decent. The job sounded easy. One cemetery, one evening, shoot some pictures, go home. I had no idea that people around here avoided that place. Nobody told me what happened there. Nobody mentioned the disappearances. Nobody warned me about the stone. The stone that wasn't supposed to be opened? The day I left for the shoot, I stopped at a small gas station, the only one for miles. I grabbed water, batteries, and snacks. When I went to pay, the old cashier A woman with gray hair tied back in a bun glanced at my camera gear. "You a hunter?" she asked. "No," I laughed. "Just taking pictures." "Where at?" "The old cemetery. The one off Miller's Pass." Her hand froze. She stared at me like I'd said something filthy. "You ain't going there alone, are you?" I shrugged. "It's just a job." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "They never should have dug there. That place was wrong before it had bodies in it." I thought she was just being dramatic, but then she added something that chilled me in a way I still can't explain. "Don't get too close to the black stone. It listens." I tried to laugh it off, but she didn't smile. She just whispered, "If you hear anything, leave. Don't question it. Just go." I got back in my car feeling stupidly nervous, even though I didn't believe in any of that supernatural crap. But looking back, that was the last normal conversation I ever had. It took me 40 minutes to reach the trailhead, then another 25 minutes hiking through thick woods. The trees were tall and old, blocking out most of the sunlight. Everything felt damp, heavy, quiet. When I finally reached the cemetery, I expected gravestones, but what I saw didn't look like any cemetery I'd ever photographed. There were only 5 graves, 5 crooked, ancient-looking headstones, arranged in a rough half circle, almost like they were facing away from something. The names were weathered, nearly unreadable, but the main thing, the thing you could not ignore, was the massive slab of black stone in the center. It wasn't a marker dot, it wasn't a headstone. It looked like a lid over something beneath the earth. A stone about 7 feet long, perfectly smooth, almost polished. It didn't match the region's geology. It didn't belong there, and someone had carved a sentence into it. "He must not be freed." That's when I felt the first twinge of unease crawl up my spine. Like the air had shifted, like the woods were watching, but I forced myself to stay calm. This was just a job, not just pictures, or so I kept telling myself. As I circled the graves, taking photographs, I noticed something odd. All 5 gravestones were tilted slightly west, as if pulled by some unseen force. I snapped a close-up photo. That's when I noticed the dates. All 5 people died the same year. I took note of that and moved toward the slab. The surface felt cold, not cold like shade. Cold like metal left in a freezer. And when I put my hand on it, I felt a faint vibration, like a pulse. I jerked my hand away, heart pounding. I told myself it was my imagination. Maybe the chill, the damp air, the creepiness, all of it was getting in my head. But then I stepped back and realized something terrifying. The soil around the stone wasn't flat. It was slightly sunken, as if something beneath it had shifted, as if something was pressing upward. I tried to shake the feeling. I took a few photos from different angles. But then I heard it. A soft, rhythmic sound. Too faint to be wind, too steady to be animals. Breathing, slow, deep, coming from beneath the stone. Every hair on my arm stood up. I held my breath, listening. Inhale. Silence. Exhale. Silence. It was unmistakable. Human-like, wet, heavy. I stepped back, pulse racing, and scanned the area. There was nobody around, no animals, nothing moving, just that steady sound coming from beneath the earth. I wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but curiosity, stupid, stubborn curiosities kept me frozen in place. I took a shaky step back toward the stone. The breathing stopped. The silence that followed was worse, thicker, like the woods were holding their breath with me. And then suddenly, thump, a single powerful hit from beneath the stone, like a fist slamming upward. The ground trembled. I stumbled backward and fell on my elbows, dropping my camera. Panic raced through me. I scrambled to my feet, grabbed my gear, and sprinted toward the trail. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. I told myself I imagined it. Stress, echoes, vibration from shifting ground. Anything but what it sounded like. Something alive under there, breathing, hitting the stone. I went home. I tried to sleep. I couldn't. At 3 a.m., I opened my laptop to review the photos. Most were normal, but when I zoomed in on the black stone in one image, I noticed something I hadn't seen in person. A tiny fracture, a hairline crack near the edge, just wide enough to reflect light. I checked another angle. The crack was real. And worse, it was glowing. Not brightly, just a faint reddish tint like embers deep inside a fire. It could have been a camera artifact, a lighting issue, whatever. But it didn't feel like an accident. It felt like something inside was leaking through. I closed my laptop. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a rough, shaky voice said, "You were at the Holt Cemetery?" I froze. I hadn't told anyone where I'd gone. "Who is this?" I asked. "My name's Earl," he said. "I used to watch over that land." I stayed silent. "You need to stay away from that place," he continued. "You don't know what's under that stone?" "What is it?" I whispered. There was a long pause. Then he said, "It's not a grave. It's a prison." I felt chills spread across my skin. A man named Asa Holt died in 1888 sealing that thing in. He was the last one who knew how to keep it bound. "A demon?" I asked, trying to sound sarcastic. "A vessel," he replied. "Something that hollows people out." I tried to laugh it off. "This sounds insane." Earl didn't laugh. 3 people went missing near that cemetery in the 60s, he said quietly. 2 hikers in 91, a surveyor in 2004, same place, same stone. My mouth went dry. Before I could respond, he added one more sentence. "A crack means it's waking up." And the line went dead. I should have ignored the cemetery, deleted the photos, moved on, but I couldn't. Not after what I heard. Not after what the man said. So 2 days later, God knows why I went back. I told myself I needed proof. Something to confirm it was just my imagination. I brought better gear, a flashlight, and a recorder. When I reached the cemetery, the air felt colder, the woods darker. But the stone, the crack was bigger. Not huge, but definitely wider than before. Maybe half an inch. And now, there was a faint sound coming from it. Not breathing, whispering. Too soft to understand, too rhythmic to be random. I lifted my camera, and that's when the ground trembled again. Not a single thump this time. A slow, steady pressure. Like something pushing upward. Like something rising. The whispers grew louder. My recorder picked up static. My flashlight flickered. And then I heard a voice right next to my ear. Not from the stone, from behind me. "Help me." I spun around, heart in my throat. No one was there. Nothing moved. No footsteps. No wind. No animals. Just that voice echoing in my head. And then a second voice. Deeper. Angrier. "Run." I didn't hesitate. I bolted through the trees, branches slashing my arms, lungs burning. I didn't stop until I reached my car. That night, I reviewed the audio recording. At first it was faint static. Then, buried beneath the noise, there it was, breathing, slow, deep, wet. And then, a voice. Not the whisper I heard behind me. This was coming from the stone. Low, inhuman, whispering one word. Free. Over and over, growing louder. Free, free, free. I slammed my laptop shut and backed away, my whole body shaking, because in the final few seconds of the recording, there was a loud crack, stone splitting, and then a single word spoken clearly. Zoom. 3 days later, I drove back out past Miller's Pass. Not to the cemetery, just near it. I don't know why. Maybe I needed closure. But when I reached the entrance to the trail, something was wrong. The air felt heavy. The woods were silent. No insects. No birds. Nothing. And then I noticed the sign. A brand new metal barricade. Property closed. No trespassing. Fresh concrete. Fresh chain. Fresh luck. Someone sealed the trail. Someone knew. As I turned my car around, I heard a sound. Not from the woods. From beneath the ground near the road. A faint, distant thump. Followed by another. Like footsteps. From below. Growing closer. I hit the gas and didn't look back. I moved to another state. I changed my number. I stopped photography. But sometimes late at night, when everything is quiet, I hear it again. A slow, shallow breath. Not outside. Not in the house. Under the floor. Like something once buried. Isn't buried anymore. And the worst part? Last week I got an email from an unknown address. No message. Just an image. A photo of that black stone. Split clean down the center. Completely shattered. With a single sentence typed underneath. He isn't tied to that place anymore. I deleted the email. But I can't delete the truth. Whatever was under that stone, it's loose now. And I don't think it stopped in those woods. I think it followed me. Because last night, as I lay in bed, trying to convince myself this is all in my head, I heard breathing again, not far away, not faint, not distant, right beside my ear, and a voice whispered,
I'm not tired anymore.
My name is Connor, and before last year I never believed history could be dangerous. I used to think the past was harmless, dead, silent, and buried. But now I know something terrifying. Some things in the past aren't dead. Some things are only trapped. And traps. Weaken. This is the story that ruined my life. I've never told anyone until now. I was hired by a historical society to restore an abandoned cemetery called Calvary Hill, hidden deep in the Appalachian foothills. It wasn't on any public map. The nearest town was little more than collapsing porches and shuttered windows. The whole place felt like time had already decided to erase it. When we arrived, the air was thick with the smell of wet stone and rotten leaves. The forest had nearly eaten the cemetery headstones, half swallowed by soil. Vines strangling names into dust. It didn't look haunted, just forgotten. But the silence was wrong. No wind, no birds, no insects, just a suffocating stillness, as if the whole forest held its breath. Standing there, I had a strange thought. This doesn't feel empty, it feels watched. While aligning grave plots, we noticed something unsettling. In Christian cemeteries, bodies are buried with feet east, facing the rising sun. But an entire section for held graves from 1888 facing west. Every single one, not a mistake, not vandalism, deliberate. At the center was an unpolished black slate stone massive, heavy, obviously placed with purpose. No name, no dates, just a strange symbol, a circle with a cross hooked beneath it. Later, I'd learned it was an alchemical symbol for antimony called the Wolf of the Metals. Something associated with devouring, consuming, dissolving. But back then, I only knew one thing. Staring at that stone made something deep in my gut twist, like it was staring back. A week into our project, we kept noticing an elderly man sitting at the tree line. Same spot every day. Gray beard, flannel jacket, cane leaning against his knee. Not moving, just watching section 4. One afternoon I approached him. Afternoon, I said, I'm Connor. He didn't smile, didn't nod, didn't blink. You work in section 4? He asked. Yeah, I said. Is there a problem? He He leaned forward slightly, voice going flat and cold. "Leave that ground alone." I tried to laugh. "Is this about superstition or?" He cut me off. "Some sleepers shouldn't be woken." I froze. His eyes dropped to the black slate stone, and he whispered, "It's not a grave, it's a lock." A chill slid under my skin. "And locks break," he added. I should have walked away then, but I didn't. The next day, he told me everything. In 1888, something began happening to the people who lived here. They would wander into the woods, always to the north, blank-eyed, silent, drawn by something they couldn't explain. When they came back, they were hollow, barely breathing, sitting for hours staring toward the tree line, and then they would simply waste away. Doctors failed. Priests failed. Families locked their doors. It didn't matter. More people walked into those woods each week. Desperate, the town sought help from a metallurgist named Asa Holtz, someone who studied older sciences, the kind that lived between religion and alchemy. Asa told them it wasn't a creature in the woods, it was a presence. Something ancient, drawn to human life the way a moth is drawn to flame. They couldn't kill it, but they could trap it. Asa carved the strange symbol, prepared a ritual, used the black slate stone to bind the presence into the earth. But the binding demanded a sacrifice, his own life. They buried Asa standing upright, facing north, so his soul would serve as the lock. Everyone who had been claimed was buried, facing west, so the entity would believe they already belonged to it, that they had already been taken. When he finished the tale, the old man looked at me with dead seriousness. "It's not gone," he said, "just held. And time makes everything tired." A few days later, my assistant, Sarah, was gently cleaning the black slate with a brush when she suddenly screamed. I raced over as she stumbled back, trembling so hard she could barely breathe. "Connor, something's alive in there." I thought she was having a panic attack. Heat exhaustion, something rational, but her face said otherwise. She whispered. I felt a heartbeat. My skin went cold. She explained that as she wiped the stone, it thumped slow, heavy, as if something deep beneath the earth inhaled. When I knelt down, I noticed something worse. The stone had shifted, only a fraction, but enough to leave fresh cracks around its base. The soil pushed upward like something underneath had pressed against it, and around the stone the grass was dead in a perfect ring. Something wasn't just buried there. Something was exerting pressure, trying to rise. I should have left. I should have warned everyone. Instead, I let curiosity rot my judgment. That night, I returned alone. Calvary Hill was swallowed in darkness. Only moonlight and the glow from the portable toilet light guided me. Section 4 was even more silent than before, like the air itself was holding back a scream. Then I saw it. A faint green glow pulsed from the cracks around the stone, pulsing in rhythm, thump, 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 matching a heartbeat. Then from the northern woods came a low hum, deep, vibrating, almost like a voice at the bottom of a well. The trees began to move. Not from wind. There was no wind. They moved as though something enormous was gliding between them, coming closer. My body seized, not from fear, something deeper. Instinct. A pressure telling me, do not move, do not breathe, do not let it notice you. The glow quickened. The hum grew louder. And then, I swear, the carved symbol on the stone sank deeper into the surface, not worn down, pushed from below, like a hand pressed against it from the other side. I bolted. I don't remember running. I remember stumbling into my truck and flooring it until I reached town. I didn't return. The next morning, I quit. Told the Historical Society to abandon Section 4. Leave the stone alone. Let the forest consume it. They ignored me. Work continued. 2 weeks later, I got a call. Sarah was missing. She had driven out toward Calvary Hill in the middle of the night. Her car was found at the edge of the woods. Engine running, driver's door open, headlights pointing north, seatbelt still buckled. It looked like she stepped out of existence. Just like the townspeople of 1888, just like Asa Holt warned, just like the old man said. Some sleepers shouldn't be woken. I moved across the country, changed my number, changed everything, but nothing helps. Because sometimes when the world is silent, when my heartbeat slows, when the dark feels too deep, I feel it. A pulse. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Thump, thump, thump. Not in my ears, inside my chest. Like something sinking with me. Like something has reached through the lock, touched the world, and found my heartbeat. Found me. Because I heard it. Because I touched the stone. Because I disturbed the ground holding it back. And each time the pulse hits my chest, I hear the old man's voice. Locks break. And now I know, when it breaks, it will come for the one who woke it. The one who listened. The one who remembers. Me. Connor? You've already stepped too far into the dark. Subscribe. And let the shadows whisper their next truth directly into your ear.